When it comes to well-being, what comes to mind for you? Well-being is a complex construct, and what we can see now in the science is that the vagus nerve supports and facilitates this process of well-being. So we know that the vagus nerve can support our inner development, our transformation, and the process of neuroplasticity, which is the ability for the nervous system to change and grow and form new neural networks. So this is really exciting because we have the ability to actively play a role in how our nervous system is shaped. We know that the vagus nerve has a regulatory role over the sympathetic nervous system. This is the branch of our nervous system which mobilizes us. And if it's not regulated, it can lead to prolonged periods of anxiety, overwhelmed, anger, rage, and irritation. So we can see the role that the vagus nerve plays in our emotional health. We can also see that the vagus nerve plays a regulatory role in our immune system. So it helps to control the levels of inflammation. This is really important with a lot of chronic health conditions and maybe what lies as the root cause of some conditions. And we can also see that the vagus nerve has a regulatory role over the gut-brain axis, or the two-way communication between our brain and our digestive system. We're seeing more and more just how much the gut is linked to things like depression and inflammation as well. And now we can objectively measure our well-being by looking at vagally mediated heart rate variability, taking a snapshot of that, and then looking at that progression over time. So well-being, according to the research, needs to take into account the self, other people, and the planet. And if we were going to define well-being in one word, that would be connection. Connection encapsulates, first of all, the connection that we have to ourselves, and that can be facilitated by the communication of the vagus nerve to particular areas in the brain. We can see the connection that we have with other people, which is also facilitated by the social engagement system of our vagus nerve, running from our heart up to our face. And finally, this connection that we have with nature as well. So let's take a look at each of these in a bit more detail. So self-connection is rooted in the awareness of oneself, particularly to our internal bodily signals. And the vagus nerve plays a really important role in sending messages from the body up to the brain. In fact, 80% of its fibers are running upwards. This sense of self comes from the communication of these bodily signals to a really important area in our brain called the insula. And it's through the insula that we develop an emotional awareness and an understanding of who we are. There is no fixed sense of self. It's a dynamic process that's happening largely through our sensory systems, which the vagus nerve is the communication highway for. Vagal functioning is actually associated with several constructs that have to do with self-connection, and these include positive emotion, compassion, empathy, and psychological flexibility. We see this particularly in emotional regulation as well, because it's how those messages are relayed upwards and how they connect with the brain that then controls how the vagus nerve will come down and regulate things like our physiology, and if we return back to a state of calmness and ease after something stressful has happened. Our self-connection may also facilitate collective well-being. This is defined as a group of individuals who function both independently and interdependently to feel good and function well. And it's through the state of regulation and our social engagement system that we access states like compassion, gratitude, and also awe. In addition, healthy vagal functioning has actually been shown to increase perceived connectedness, and this can create an upward spiral of connection and regulation between two people when they come into that state of co-regulation. When this happens, we also have a release of oxytocin, which further helps to increase our heart rate variability. And these social relational emotions, particularly the emotion of awe, is what allows us to access well-being when we come into nature. So just like social connectedness, this need for connection of nature may be a psychological and a physiological need for us. Research has shown that being in a natural environment will improve vagal functioning compared to an urban environment. And the feelings of belonging and togetherness really support this nature connection. So improving the health of the vagus nerve is much more than looking at trying to hack one nerve. It's really about how we access this ecosystem of our vagus nerve so we can promote our own well-being.